Welcome back to season 3 of the Green Living Chat podcast. And it's really exciting to come your way again with interesting stories that we're telling on the Green Living Chat podcast. To kick season 3 off, today we are talking about the state of waste management in Ghana and the sustainable way forward. And to do this, I have with me Nana Adjei, who is a passionate environmentalist with lots of experience in waste management, community energy planning, and sustainability. He has spoken on several TV and radio talk shows on recycling and waste management in Canada. Nana is also a project affiliate researcher with Waste Wiki in York University. He is also a member of the Solid Waste Association of North America and has received several awards and works for the City of Brookville Solid Waste Department. In this conversation, we talked about the current state of waste management in Ghana, the contributing factors, and how it's impacting us ecologically, socially, and economically. We also talked extensively about the role of the government, individuals, research, and recycling in solving this issue. A take-home message is the proper strategies that we can put in place right from the government level to the individual level in moving forward. So why don't you first share this link on your social media platform or tell a friend of a friend to listen to this episode? And please help us by sending us your comment to our email or any platform where you're listening to this podcast. This helps us to reach other people to listen to this podcast. Now grab a coffee and let's get into this episode. You are listening to the Green Living Chat podcast, a podcast where we discuss emerging environmental issues around the world and to find sustainable solutions. I'm your host, David Ewusi-Mensah. We use this platform to support environmental related initiatives, researches, and projects. This podcast is brought to you by EcoWamet Solutions in Ghana with a mission to going back to green. So join us on this train with new episodes this and every Sunday. Here we go. Hello, Nana. Thank you so much for joining me on the Green Living Chat podcast. And I'm really happy that you can wake up on a Saturday morning to have a chat with me about things that are quite important in our country, Ghana. So you're welcome to the podcast, Nana.
Thank you very much, David, for also giving me the opportunity to talk about waste issues in Ghana too as well. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nana, I've seen a lot of your articles that you've been publishing in most of the Ghanaian media. And it's inspiring how you try to impact, quite a huge number of audience by the articles that you write. And I just have to say congratulations on those things that you do.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So normally on the podcast, I like people to get to know a little bit about the person that I'm talking to. So, it will be very interesting for us to get to know some of your experiences throughout your life. How was your childhood? How did the interest in sustainability come from? So, Nana, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So you did mention about childhood experience. So growing up in Ghana, I played drums for my church. Wow. I was part of the singing group, and I went to the only school in Ghana, which is Presbyterian Boys Secondary School.
Oh, you are bringing a problem. Yeah,
the only school in Ghana. Yeah. So for my interest, I found my passion for environment whilst at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, studying geography. So I fell in love with it, and the rest is history.
Wow, this is beautiful.
I know. So for my education and why I chose sustainability, coming from Ghana, where the 3 R's, which is the reduce, reuse, recycle, were hard to implement due to financial constraints and competition for national resources, got me into environment because we send everything to landfill or burn waste openly. And it's one of the many reasons that made me to earn my master's in environmental studies from York University. Canada. So in terms of project and my expertise and current roles, when I was with the city of Toronto, everything was working towards the city's long-term waste management strategy to achieve a 70% diversion rate by 2026. Today, I work with the city of Brockville on solid waste diversion project with the city, trying to find alternatives to the landfill. So part of the job is research, keeping up to date on what the options are for solid waste diversion and what might work for the city. So my day-to-day tasks include waste planning, budgeting, landfill management, researching on new trends coming up in the waste industry, report writing, overseeing contractors, addressing complaints, data call, and management of the compost site and supervising. I am also a project affiliate with Waste Wiki, York University, where we conduct research on waste issues and waste trends in the industry. I have written a lot of reports, articles, which I'll share the links with you after. So some include waste is not a sexy topic here in Ghana. What is the goal? What is the goal of our waste management systems in Ghana? Economic analysis of including packaging-like products in the blue bin, which is a recycling bin. An overview and comparison of Ontario and British Columbia producer responsibility studies. Estimating increase in the steward obligation resulting from expansion into the IC&I, which is the industrial, commercial, and institution. And lastly, my current publication, Best Practices in Addressing Illegal Dumping of Durable Waste, just got published by Mattress Recycle Council here in North America.
Wow. This is very inspiring. Nana, I see this to be very interesting for people who are coming up in their education, right? I just want to get a little bit of inspiration from your side. We have a segment on our podcast where we try to bring people in the research industry, let's say academia, who are doing certain researches that we think that it can help bridge the gap between some of the challenges that we are having in the industry. I mean, be applicable in the industry. But sometimes when I talk to researchers just like myself, it becomes a little bit of a struggle for them to come up with how can they apply the things that they are learning in school to the industry. And I believe that all these things also has a place in the way that they choose the course they do and the experiences that they go through. Could you please just highlight a little bit of what you considered in choosing all these careers that you went through, especially even from your bachelor's degree to your master's degree, and some of the little bit of courses that you took and that shaped you to even get these opportunities that you have right now?
Well, thank you very much, David. But to be honest with you, when I was at KN University, I did geography and rural development, and I took a course in environmental management. I fell in love with the course, and after that, I pursued by relocating to Canada, and I did a second undergrad degree again.
Wow.
And that's where the passion came.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where the passion came. And ever since, it hasn't stopped. Like, it's taking me places. Sometimes, you may have to take courses, and the more courses you take, you might find your niche. And then once you find your niche, believe me that it will work for you. Yeah. So I found my niche, which is environment, waste. And then, as you can see, I've worked for the fourth largest city here in North America. Now I'm with the city of Brockville. I don't know where next which city next I'll be jumping onto.
Something bigger.
It's something bigger or something smaller, whichever comes.
Yeah.
So it's all you finding your passion. If you have passion for it, believe me that you will steady because you have interest in that, and that will even help you, motivate you to even write articles and get it published and all of that. So that's all I can say.
Definitely.
Take a course that you really like and be good at it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So once you pick a course and you are good at it, the rest will follow. It might take years, but the rest will follow. It will definitely come. The time will definitely come.
Yeah, I do agree with you 100%. And I think it's very inspiring for really young people who are coming up to be inspired by these kind of stories. And especially even within our country, we know that there are a lot of issues that are happening that need such expertise. So people get inspired by these stories. I think that they will be engaging more to help solve some of the problems that we have. And this actually brings to mind that this is the main reason why we wanted to have this conversation. In Ghana, we are struggling really with solid waste management. When you think about it, you don't know where the problem is. But listening to the experience that you've gone through, I mean, working with these huge industries and some of the strategies that they are implementing, I'm sure that when you look back and look at the country, Ghana, you can easily identify some of the things that are going on and some of the loopholes that are in our solid waste management now. I want you to talk from your expertise direction. What do you think are some of the loopholes in our current solid waste management system that we have?
So the government of Ghana over the years has developed policy, legislative, and regulatory framework as part of effort to address waste management problems in Ghana. So, for instance, we have the environmental sanitation policy was formulated in 1999 alongside various relevant legislation such as the Local Government Act, Environmental Assessment Regulations, and Pesticide Controls and Management Act. Among others have been enacted for control and management of waste in Ghana. The new policy lays the foundation for developing a pragmatic approach and framework to identify and harness resources for value for money services to all. So the loophole here is, despite the enactment of this legislative framework 2 decades ago, waste management is still the number one environmental problem in Ghana. The policies are there, but we are not enforcing it. So hopefully that will not be long on carrots, but short on effective sticks.
So, but then looking at our current state, we all know what is happening in the country. We have open gutters, we have people dumping waste everywhere. And exactly just like you said, the policies are not working, that industries just do whatever they want. What are the impact of this system on our ecosystem, the society, the health of the individuals, and the economy at large?
I would say let's break it down.
Okay.
So for society, we can talk about the rate at which population is increasing in Ghana, coupled with the rush for land for development in the bigger cities, and an increase in waste generated from residents or even in industries or commercial, got me thinking that land filling takes a lot of space. A time will quickly come, Ghana will run out of space. So the earlier we resort to alternatives, the better for the economy. Landfilling the waste generated completely undermines the government policy to recover resources and ignores the 3R, which is the reduce, the reuse, and the recycle. Now, for economy, intuitively, if waste is classified as a resource in Ghana, why are we landfilling the materials generated? Indeed, can I boldly say that Ghana has failed to capture the economic aspect of that waste and experiencing poorly environmental outcome?
I do agree.
Let's also take into consideration that not all materials are created equal. Some do have value. So landfilling everything and everywhere could pose an acute risk to the environment. Also, for human health, let's take into consideration that a poorly designed landfill site could create leachate, which in the long run could contaminate the water table. A good example of this danger is the Pond landfill site, which is located in Greater Accra region. I always ask this question: who is monitoring the surface and the groundwater for leachate and other volatile organic compounds? Who has the data generated from the sampling? Also, take into consideration that you and I feel the impact when the light goes off and the water isn't flowing. In the case of waste management, it has always been an out of sight from the public until we start smelling the stench, breathing the toxic air, and the long-term effect, as you know, is deadly. For the ecosystem, which is the last one, I'll talk about plastic. Plastic, as you know, has become the environmental boogeyman of our time, with single-use plastic integrating into food chains and production units. Now, how do we close the loop to prevent these single-use plastic from ending up in the shared environment? As experts are saying, a time will come, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish by the year 2050. So I would say the time is now to act by boycotting single-use plastic to ensure plastic is disposed responsibly so it can be recycled.
Yeah, these issues that you mentioned are very alarming, and I'm super glad that we can have such a conversation today. And I hope that the stakeholders and those who are actually supposed to hear this will get to hear this, so that maybe some of the knowledge and practical strategies that you will be talking about could be implemented actually. But we've already touched a little bit of this, but I just want us to highlight it. You mentioned something which is important about awareness, right? And I realized that these are some of the things that are lagging in Ghana actually. And we don't get a lot of these experts actually involving themselves in awareness campaigns. But I know that there are several things that are contributing to the current state of our waste management in Ghana. Could you pinpoint some of these areas, some of these contributing factors to that?
So the number one thing that I'll talk about is taxes.
Mm.
It's about time that industries, commercial institutions start paying taxes on garbage and recycling. The second one is who will fund for recycling? Is it the government, or is it going to be a shared responsibility between the government and that of what we call the producers? Or is it going to be the producers only, which is the extended producer responsibility? The third thing I'll touch base on is lack of awareness creation among the members of the public on recycling, garbage, and composting. The fourth is each region needs to set goals and work to achieve them. The fifth point I might touch based on is lack of infrastructure. So if all the waste is collected from the ICNI, the industrial commercial institution, how do we manage them? I'll give you an example. During the lockdown, the government of Ghana did its best to clean most parts of the cities, but there were no bins for the members of the public to toss their waste into. So when the lockdown was lifted, this would have been an important step to maintain cleanliness the government started. But now if you go back to the same place that the government cleaned, it's a mess. So who do we blame here? So last one will be enforcement.
Yeah, definitely.
So we need good leaders to enforce the members of the public.
I think that from your point, you've already started talking about the things that we should be doing in moving forward. Nana, there are so many strategies that I think different countries and different regions are employing. Because I mean, waste management, I think it's not just within the continent or probably within Africa who are facing these kind of issues. It's practically a very huge problem all across the globe. But I feel and I think that it's very important for us to know strategically which system is very feasible for our country or our locality, right? So, in moving forward, and from your expertise in working with several solid waste companies, and with what do you think should be the baseline that we should build upon if we want to adapt a proper or an engineered or a well structured waste management system within the country at all levels?
Well, thank you, David. I would say policies from the Ministry of Environment for each region to develop its solid waste long-term plan. Now, let's take a look at our policy priorities at the local assemblies. It is uncommon to see a lofty diversion target set in the distant future. For example, 25% diversion rate by 2025 or 2030. See, these priorities or goals come with a cost, including education, rolling out a new program, buying well-labeled bins, waste audit to understand the waste generated, and creating recycling centers. Now, for Ghana to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 11, which promotes the safe removal and management of waste within communities, waste management should be given a priority in Ghana. So it's about time Ghanaians redefine the impossible and find the possibilities in every act. Now, with the strategies to address the issues of waste management in Ghana, we need to, one, tackle the issue of behavioral change by changing people's mindset to do the right thing when it comes to disposing of waste. As an example, waste education at school should be added to the basic curriculum to teach the next generation about waste segregation. Supplying educational materials to the public to teach where each waste type, or creating a computer waste app for easy access to
Yes,
information.
I like
Yeah.
that.
We also must put in place infrastructure to handle the waste. An example, bins at designated places where people can toss their waste. We must be very innovative in terms of the type of recycling, or I would say the technologies to manage the waste. So that would enable us effectively to manage our waste. For instance, investment in a recycling plant will enable our recyclable waste to be captured and sold for profit to boost the economy. We must also set up a pragmatic policy, bylaws, to address, for example, single-use plastic, waste issues in our various communities, regions, and enforcement of the law. And lastly, we can touch base on establish a depot, like a licensed place where members of the public can drop off their electronics or their waste.
I really love how you put the points, because they are sort of like the base foundation that we need to build upon certain things. And one thing that I think I would just like you to highlight just a little bit is what you mentioned about behavioral change, right? And I think this is something that is super important in Ghana, because even this afternoon I was just having a conversation, and it just popped up that you can see someone in Ghana who is working in a bank. He's like maybe a bank manager, well dressed with a tie and everything, and in his car, and practically he buys something on the street and just throws the package just outside his car, just because,
Yeah.
I don't know, he's done and he needs to get rid of the waste. So it makes
Yeah.
me think that why would someone who we think is educated, right, should be doing such acts? It means that people really need to be educated that throwing my things outside and keeping my immediate surrounding clean doesn't mean it's the end. I just want you to highlight a little bit how you think that this education could be applied, especially thinking about people in the informal sector as well.
So the thing is, if we educate the masses, do not litter, do not put your waste by the roadside. The government must also provide infrastructure, bins. Out here in Canada, public space, there's a lot of bins. I would say every 2-3 minutes, you might see a bin where members of the public can walk and toss their waste. So that's how come over here the environment is much more cleaner as compared to Ghana. So if we are talking about behavioral change to the members of the public, we might also be providing them with bins that they can also put their waste in. Like I'll give you an example. During the lockdown, the government of Ghana did its possible best to clean most places. But after the lockdown was lifted up, it came back to cost 90.
Yeah.
Cost 90, which is zero.
Yeah.
Because there's no place for people to toss their waste. If we provide infrastructure and make sure it's well labeled, so that if we're doing the promotion and education, the members of the public would understand that, okay, this goes here and that goes here. And people will start doing the right thing by placing the right waste in the right bin to avoid contamination.
Okay, so you have mentioned several things, from policies to bylaws to, behavioral change and education and awareness and all that as some of the baseline strategies that we can put in place. We also know that there are some technologies and techniques that have been recommended, and people are actually practicing this in different areas, because it's very necessary for us to also apply a system to avoid, the waste from getting into the environment, and also to reduce the amount of waste that goes into recycling. And we know that there are a couple of technologies that are very renowned and recommended by lots of countries. They are practicing and it's working. What are some of these technologies that you can actually, recommend that we should do practically, and how we can go about them?
Well, I would say build a waste to energy plant that will aid in addressing the waste problems and power debacle Ghana is facing, locally referred to as doom job.
Yeah.
This will reduce the strain on the national grid
Mhm.
and ensure a reliable, efficient, and effective power supply. We can also apply chemical recycling, where we can generate fuel from the waste for our day-to-day activities like powering government fleet of vehicles or generators, and also use the remaining carbon black on our road as asphalt. Me personally, I don't support landfilling. It sends wrong signals to the members of the public to generate more waste rather than minimizing their waste. Landfill requires the permanent transformation of virgin land to landfills and produce zero point 0.5 to 1 ton more greenhouse gas emissions than compaction with energy recovery.
You just mentioned something about, and it's revolving around adding value to this waste so that we don't get it to go into the landfill. I have seen a lot of young people getting into recycling and composting in Ghana, and I think it's something encouraging that should be scaled up so that we can get this working. You are working in this industry and you're very familiar with some of the things that are happening worldwide, right? What are some of the examples that you can give when it comes to recycling? What are some of the ideas that people can adapt, like changing plastic into what, changing food waste into what are some of the things that we can encourage people to start digging into, so that, well, in as much as the private sector gets into it, the government can also be awakened that, well, we can actually reduce waste from getting into the landfill by actually placing more value on the waste that we collect.
That's right. So it all starts with promotion and education, right? It also starts with research. Like I did mention before, not all plastic materials are created equal. Some do have value. So the ones that do have values, we tap into it and make sure we find market for it, and then possibly sell it and make profit, or convert these valuable plastics into other product. So for example, like in the developed world, they take the PET bottle, they convert that into t-shirt, into socks, into other materials that we all use, we all wear.
So honestly, I'm really really glad that lots of these young people are getting into these kind of jobs. So it's encouraging. I really hope that the government could also give incentives for them to start businesses, placing more value on the recyclable materials than people going in for the raw materials, right? So these can also encourage people to get into them. But you made mention of research, right? What is really the role of research and development in the system? Because I know that the baseline of everything, of course, the policies and everything to come in, even before we can even do a thorough education and awareness campaigns, we definitely need to know what is happening in the system. We need to know the level of pollution, volumes of waste that are generated and everything. But you know better in this. What is the role really of R&D in this approach?
So research plays a very crucial role, especially if you want to know what regions in Ghana recycles the most, or what type of bins is good for public place. You need to conduct research. So let's say if Accra region wants to roll out a new program for its residents, it first has to conduct research by looking into other jurisdictions to see how they implemented theirs, the benefit of that program, the drawback, the lessons learned from that program before they proceed. I personally conducted a research on the best practices in addressing illegal dumping here in North America. In my findings, I found out that a number of people were not utilizing the waste collection program that the city do have. I found out that the cost of preventing illegal dumping was lower than the cost of remediation. I found out that when people are leaving an area and moving elsewhere, they feel less a part of that current community and more entitled to engage in illegal dumping. I also found out that convenience is one of the most significant predictors of behaviors. Whilst people support reuse, recycling, not everyone wants to incur costs. I also found out that people who participate in illegal dumping have favorable attitude towards the environment. And pay as you throw, which is known as the payette, has helped reduce the number of bags from ending up in a landfill. It indirectly encourages illegal dumping, as the increase in cost of disposal may be sufficient to encourage illegal dumping to avoid disposal cost. And lastly is communication. Communication is always key. So with the strategies, we can touch based on one, awareness creation. We need to create awareness for the members of the public where they can send their waste. We also have to improve access to proper disposable, site. We also have to strengthen enforcement and possibly physical prevention strategies. But I also said this to my city that if we could set aside an X number of money for any members of the public that could bring evidence of anyone throwing items that could lead to an arrest or fines, could receive X amount of money, and the outcome was a success.
There are so many things in just the few the few words that you just you just said. It's really, really packed. I want us to digest this a little bit. There is something you mentioned about the polluter pay, right?
Yeah,
I
pay as you
know,
throw, pay
yes,
as you throw.
exactly. There are different systems to this. And I really want us to talk about something that is super feasible to our system. You know Ghana very well, and you know how the system is also working in other places, right? How specifically do you think this particular, let's say, policy or system could help? And later, I would like us to talk a little bit about research again because of something you mentioned.
For Ghana, it should be taxes. Basically, yeah, taxes will help. And even before that, the government must also look at the district, the assembly, because there are some places where they are very vulnerable. So the government must, maybe subsidize those areas by helping them out. The big regions like Ashanti region, Accra region, that people do have money. I know not all of them do have money, but majority of the people do have money, so they can afford to pay for pay as you throw. It all falls under taxes. Taxes must play a crucial role in here. And then when taxes come, the second will be policy. So the policy will be for Accra region, every household is entitled to one garbage bag. So that means that if that homeowner or whoever lives in Accra region generate an additional bag, you have to buy a tag and place it on it before it will be collected from your residence or from your workplace or wherever you are, your institution. So it's taxes, policy, and then enforcement.
There is something you mentioned about research and development and about your research and some of the recommendations that you made to your city. I also went to KNUSD, and I know in my department, there were lots of people who did their research in solid waste management. I mean, revolving around landfilling, the impact of this, LCAs, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, researches are being done, the papers are being published, but there is a huge gap in the research and the industry, especially in Ghana. The thesis and all the papers are just being packed in the libraries and nothing comes out from it. How can we bridge this gap?
It all has to start with the ministry from the topmost approach. Because once they lay the foundation, the rest will follow. And then they can also tap into the professors that are working in the various universities, seek advice from them or their expertise in terms of publications and all of that. I'll give you an example. If the Ministry of Environment do come up with, let's say, okay, Accra, Ghana will be introducing pay as you throw. I mean, I'm definitely sure there are professors in Ghana that can, criticize and say, if the government, introduce this system, this is what's going to happen. That's the outcome. That's the effect of that program that the government wants to introduce. So don't get me wrong, research plays a very crucial role. So once the system is working, we'll definitely see the importance of that.
Now I think we have a whole ministry for environment and sanitation, right? So these ministries and people that are in there should involve the research,
Yeah,
research groups in planning. I mean, if they set a committee to plan for something, maybe Go Green Ghana or maybe any agenda, they should involve the academic people to also pour out the experiences that they are gaining, because day in, day out, every year, students are graduating with huge pages of thesis with lots of money invested for research, but they just stay in there.
it's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
I know.
So
I remember I wrote my assessing the socio-economic impact of fishing at Timpoku. That was my project that I did, K University.
yes, but nothing happens afterwards.
But over here, if you get a job with the ministry, all you do basically 24/7 is you modeling, forecasting, always researching new trends, things that I would say municipalities or regions can do to make the environment a better place. They are always doing stuff, always.
We'll get there. I share the same idea with you, because I'm actually doing my PhD research, and I got a chance to work with a company in Spain. And one day I was just having a conversation with my supervisor, and this is what he told me, that David, we are getting a lot of money for grants, right? That we are using for this thesis. And you know that all this research that we are doing, people are waiting out there for us to come out with solutions to their everyday environmental issues. So you cannot sit here doing research thinking about publishing papers. Think about the solutions that you can bring into the industry. And I started thinking differently, because I realized that the research that I'm doing, I shouldn't think about it just being implemented in the lab, and I just finish the lab thing and I just put in my thesis together and just publish papers. But that's not it. We have to think about scaling up. We have to think about future research. And so I think this could be an advice to also people in the academia, that we have to change the narrative, because sometimes we do certain strange researches that I think that they do not head anywhere. They just head towards just, trying to publish some things and finish graduation. Let's talk a little bit about the general role of the government to make this waste management more effective. What do you think is the main role of I mean, we've mentioned so many things already. Maybe we can just summarize it through, because I think that's the last thing that I'll be asking you on this particular topic that we have here.
Okay, so the general role for government is policy and directional letters. Policy and directional letters. Let's look at the drivers of change and how that can impact our waste management.
Yes.
First is systemic change. So what's happening at the national level? It's outside the control of the regions we have in Ghana. So a good example is the packaging, or some would say some types of plastic. So the second point that I might touch based on is endemic or infrastructure change. No two regions are alike. Infrastructure, demography, population, density, all affect waste generation or diversion in different ways. A good example is Accra is radically different from Kumasi. So comparing these two regions is problematic unless endemic characteristics are controlled for. My last point is attributional change. So basically refers to changes in overall waste generation recovery attributed to a specific program or policy implemented by the region. These are the factors that are within a region control and speak directly to the efficacy of a particular initiative. So, example, Accra region maybe might be deciding whether to embark on recycling bin or a cut-based, program to increase diversion. Or they can also come up with programs like lending libraries, where if you have resources that you don't really like it, you can put it on the curbside or you put it by in front of your house, and then people driving by can also pick it up and reuse that particular item. And maybe bike repairs, places where people can come over and repair their bike, or even rent a bike for a day or two.
With these things that you've mentioned about the role of the government, I think we should just go back a little bit and talk about the role of education and awareness in the system. Because I think earlier we mentioned a little bit about the informal and formal sectors that we have in Ghana. But considering the different groups that we have in Ghana, considering social and cultural differences and all that, how do you think we can go this direction, and what will be the specific role of education and awareness?
While there is really a one size fits all approach to promotion and education, it is important that communities or regions provide clear and consistent messaging with respect to one, illegal dumping, recycling, composting, and highlighting the why, the where, the what, and when of a program. And I'll give an example. So, like, households should understand why illegal dumping is a critical issue, including the problems caused by illegal dumping with respect to health, the environment, the quality of life, and the aesthetic consequences. Promotion and education campaigns should also clearly communicate where waste should be brought to, including the designated drop-off sites and collection points that are available in a given community. Household should also clearly understand what are permissible items for disposal that are accepted as part of a regional residential waste program. These need to be prescriptive as possible, as not all waste are going to be accepted depending on the collection point. So I'll give you an example. My organization that I'm in right now, we don't take anything electronics at individual homes. If you have electronics, there is a place here in my city where you can send all your electronic stuff to. Lastly, communication should be in different languages as we have other groups or cultural differences. I believe it should start with the largest cultural group and then transcend to the other group. Research should play a good role here in identifying the largest group against the minority.
These points are so good, and I really want to say thank you for really taking time to put all these ideas together, and also for coming on the podcast to have these kind of conversations. Definitely, I'm gonna put the contact details of Nana in the show notes, and anyone who wants to contact him for ideas on how to even start up put these strategies into practice, right, could contact him, and you could have access to his articles and some of his projects that he has conducted also in the show notes as well. But now, before I let you go, there's a question that we normally ask our guests on the podcast, and it is that should you have the opportunity, or should you have just one chance to change anything about the way we behave towards the environment, maybe in this case, Ghana, what would it be? What would you change?
To change in Ghana. Wow. In research, there's a term called endogeneity hypothesis, where the effect of A will affect B and B will affect C. So if I should change, then possibly we have to start from Ministry of Environment. I really want to know what their plans are for the waste industry in Ghana. I want to know their goals, their long-term goal for waste management in Ghana. So maybe we'll start from there. So once we know the long-term goal, then I can answer your question. So for
Yes.
now, I'll say I really want to know their long-term goal for waste management in Ghana.
We will send this message to them, and then I'll call you again to answer the question.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I remember very well that when this new ministry was set aside, I was expecting to have a well detailed plan of what they want to do. And to be very honest with you, as at now, I haven't seen clearly what their strategy is and their long term strategy, and probably maybe the
That's right.
policies
Yeah.
that they are implementing. Because I will want to see more, because I think the government has already put out that he wants Accra to be the cleanest city in Africa.
That's right. I really want to see their long-term goal. That's what I'll
Exactly.
say.
That's super important. Thank you, Nana, so much for coming on the podcast today, and for taking time out of your today's Saturday to come on this podcast. I really appreciate it. You have written several articles, and I just want you to give your last advocacy message. What will be your message if you just have like a minute to say something to the public?
I would say recycling is not the only tool in our toolbox. It's time to look at the other arrows. And a system that focuses solely on recycling is bound to fail. Also, we've consumed so much that we are at war with our own waste. And lastly, waste is part of our family,
Yeah.
but doing it right and putting it where it belongs is a habit.
We need to take a lot of time to digest some of the things that you have said. And I will say it again, I really appreciate your time today. I really enjoyed the conversation. And I think that we've really done justice to the topic. And I know that this is going to make a lot of impact. So, Nana, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to connect again.
Yeah, for sure. We will. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Green Living Chats podcast. This initiative is to educate and create awareness on things that really matter. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments as we get interactive on our social media platforms at Echo Ahmed Solutions on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you would like to be part of these conversations, contact us via email at glcpodcasts@echoamedsolutions.com or see our contact details in the show notes. See you on the next episode, and remember, live green,